The Story of Bluebeard by Charles Perrault. Once in a time, there was a man who had fine town and country houses, gold and silver plates, embroidered furniture, and coaches gilt all over. But unfortunately, this man had a blue beard, which made him look so ugly and terrible that there was no woman or girl who did not run away from him. One of his neighbors, a lady of quality, had two daughters who were perfectly beautiful. He proposed to marry one of them, leaving her to choose which of the two she would give him. Neither of them would have him, and they sent him from one to the other, but being able to make up their minds to marry a man who had a blue beard. What increased their distaste in him was that he had had several wives already, and nobody knew what had happened to them. Bluebeard and others, in order to cultivate their acquaintance, took them with their mother, 3 or 4 of their most intimate friends, and some young persons who were raised in the neighborhood, to one of the country seats, where they passed an entire week. Nothing was talked of but excursions, hunting and fishing, parties, balls, entertainment, collections. Nobody went to bed. The whole night was spent in merry games and gambles. In short, all went off so well that the youngest daughter began to find out that the blue beard of the master of the house was not as blue as it used to be, and that he was a very worthy man. Immediately upon their return to town, the marriage took place. At the end of the month, Bluebeard told his wife that he was obliged to take a journey which would occupy 6 weeks at least, on a matter of great consequence, that he entreated she would amuse herself as much as she would during this absence, that she would invite her best friends, take them into the country with her if she pleased, and keep an excellent table everywhere. "Here," said he to her, "are the keys of my 2 great storerooms. These are those of the chest in which the gold and silver plate is kept. That is one used to particular occasions. These are a key to the strong boxes in which I keep my money. These open the caskets that contain my jewels, and this is the pass key of all the apartments. As for this little key, it is of the closet at the end of the long gallery on the ground floor. Open everything and go everywhere except into the little closet, which is forbidden you to enter. I forbid you so strictly that if you should venture to open the door, there is nothing that you may not have to dread from my anger." She promised to observe implicitly all his directions, and after he had embraced her, he got on her horse and set out to the journey. The neighbors and friends of the young bride were so eager to see her, so they did not wait for her invitation, not having ventured to enter it while the husband was at home. So terrified were they at his blue beard. Behold them immediately running through all the room, closets, and wardrobes, each apartment exceeding in the other by beauty and richness. However, the curiosity increased to such degree that without reflecting how rude it would to leave her company, she ran down the back staircase in such haste that twice or thrice she narrowly escaped breaking her neck. Arriving at the door of the closet, she paused for a moment, thinking herself of her husband's prohibition, and that some misfortune might befall her for her disobedience. But the temptation was so strong that she could not conquer it. She therefore took a little key and opened, trembling, the door of the closet. At first she could discern nothing, the windows being closed. After a short time she began to perceive that the floor was all walls. These were all the wives of Bluebeard, who had cut their throats one after the other. She went ready to die with fright, and the key of the closet, which she had withdrawn from the lock, fell from her hand. After receiving her sense a little, she picked the key, locked the door again, and went up to her chamber to compose herself. But she could not succeed. Greatly was she agitated, having observed that the key of the closet was stained with blood. She wiped it 2 or 3 times, but the blood would not come off. In vain she washed it, and even scrubbed it with sand and fresh stone. The blood was still there, for the key was enchanted, and there were no means of cleaning it completely. When the blood was washed off on one side, it came back on the other. Bluebeard returned to it that very evening, saying that he received the letters on the road, informing him that the business on which he has gone had been settled in advantage. His wife did all that she could persuade him to. She was delighted at his speedy return, and next morning he asked her for the keys again. She gave them to him, but her hand trembled so that he had not much difficulty in guessing what had occurred. "How comes it," said he, "that the key of the closet is not with the others?" "I must have left it," she replied, "upstairs in my table, "Fail not," said Bluebeard, "to give it to me presently." After several excuses, she was compelled to produce a key Bluebeard had examined it, said to his wife, "Why is there some blood on the key?" "I don't know," answered the poor wife, paler than death. "You don't know," returned Bluebeard. "I know well enough. You must need enter the closet." "Well, madam, you shall enter it, and go take your place among the ladies you have saw there." Flung herself at her husband's feet, weeping and begging his pardon, with all the signs of true repentance for having disobeyed him. Her beauty and affliction might have melted the rock, but Bluebeard had a heart harder than a rock. "You must die, madam," he said, "and immediately." "If I must die," she replied, looking at him with streaming eyes, "give me a little time to say my prayers." "I give you half a quarter of an hour," answered Bluebeard, "but not a minute more." As soon as he had left her, she called her sister and said to her, "Sister Anne," for though she muttered, "go up, I pray thee, to the top of the tower, and see if my brothers are not coming. They have promised me that they would come to see me today, and if you see them, sign to them to make haste." Sister Anne mounted to the top of the tower. The poor distracted creature called to her very own now and then, "Anne, Sister Anne, dost thou not see anything coming?" And Sister Anne answered her, "I see nothing but the sun making dust and the grass growing green." In the meanwhile, Bluebeard, with a great cuddleness in his hand, called out with all his might to his wife, "Come down quickly, or I will come up there." "1 minute more, if you please," replied the wife, and immediately repeated it in a low voice, "Anne, Sister Anne, dost thou not see anyone coming?" And Sister Anne replied, "I guess nothing but the sun making dust and the grass growing greener." "Come down quickly," roared Bluebeard, "or I will come up there." "I came," answered his wife, and then exclaimed, "Anne, Sister Anne, do not see anything coming?" "I see," said Sister Anne, "a great cloud of dust moving this way." "Is it my brothers?" "Alas, no, sister, I see a flock of sheep." "Will thou not come down?" shouted Bluebeard. "1 more minute," replied the wife, and cried, "Anne, Sister Anne, do not see anything coming." I see," she replied, "2 horsemen coming this way, but they are still at a great distance." "Heaven be praised," she exclaimed a moment afterwards. "They are my brothers. I am making all the signs I can to haste them." Bluebeard began to roar so loudly that the whole house shook again. The poor wife descended and went and threw herself with streaming eyes and disheveled dress at his feet. "No, no," said he, "recommend thyself wholly to heaven." And lifting his arm, at this moment there was so loud a knocking at the gate that Bluebeard stopped short. It was open, and 2 horsemen were immediately seen to enter, who, drawing their swords, ran straight at Bluebeard. He recognized them as the brothers of his wife, on a dragoon, the others of a musketeer, and consequently fled immediately in hope to escape. But they pursued him so closely that they overtook him before he could reach the step of his door, and passing their swords through his body, left him dead on the spot. The poor wife was almost as dead as her husband, and had not strength to rise and embrace her brothers. It was found that Bluebeard has no heirs, and so his widow remained possessed of all his property. She employed part of it in marrying her sister Anne to a young gentleman who had long loved her. Another part is buying captain's commissions for her 2 brothers, and with the rest of them married herself to a very worthy man who made her forget and miserable time she had passing with Bluebeard. And that is it, the story of Bluebeard. Hope you have learned something.